The emergency sirens echoed through the command center of the Deathworld Alliance headquarters. Captain Elena Vasquez stood at the observation window, watching the dark space beyond the station. She had only been with the Alliance for 6 months, representing Earth in this gathering of the galaxy's toughest species. Even now, she still felt like an outsider. High Commander Krethazar entered the room, his massive form towering over the other officers. The Varanthi warrior came from a world with 3 times Earth's gravity, and his thick armor-like skin showed the scars of countless battles. He looked at Elena with his 4 yellow eyes, his expression unreadable. "Human," he said, his voice like grinding stones. "Your presence is required at the council meeting. Immediately." Elena nodded and followed him through the corridors. She had learned not to take offense at the way some Alliance members spoke to her. Earth was new to the galactic community, and humans were still proving themselves. The fact that Earth was classified as a Class 12 death world meant something, but most species saw it as a curiosity rather than a strength. The council chamber was filled with representatives from 12 different worlds. All of them came from planets that would kill most galactic citizens within hours. High-gravity worlds, toxic atmosphere planets, places with predators that hunted in packs, and weather that changed from freezing to boiling in minutes. These were the survivors, the warriors, the ones who understood what it meant to fight for every breath. "The situation is critical," announced Commander Tavera, a being made of living crystal from the radiation-soaked world of Kelth. Her voice chimed like breaking glass. 3 days ago, our outermost defense stations went silent. Yesterday we found them. Completely destroyed. No wreckage, no survivors, just empty space where they once stood. A hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed a massive ship, black as the void itself, with strange organic curves mixed with sharp mechanical angles. It looked wrong, like something that should not exist. "We call it the Harvester," Tavera continued. "According to ancient records, it appears every 50,000 years. It destroys advanced civilizations and then vanishes. Most species thought it was just a legend, a story to scare children. But the evidence is clear. It's real. And it's here." Murmurs filled the chamber. Elena felt her stomach tighten. She had faced many dangers on Earth, from hurricanes to earthquakes, from war to plague. But this was different. This was a threat that had ended entire civilizations. "How many ships does it have?" asked General Mortok, a 6-limbed warrior from a high-pressure water world. "Just one," Tavera replied. "The ship you see is the Harvester itself, but that single ship has weapons beyond our understanding. It destroyed our defense stations in seconds. Each station had shields that could withstand a nuclear blast. They meant nothing to this enemy." Krethazar stepped forward. "The Alliance will respond with full force. Every member world must contribute their finest warships and warriors. We will meet this threat together, as we have met all challenges, with strength and honor." The council members struck their chest plates in agreement, a gesture of unity. Elena did the same, feeling the weight of what was coming. After the meeting, Elena walked with Dr. James Chen through the station's observation deck. James was Earth's xenobiologist, a thin man with tired eyes who had spent his career studying alien life. He looked worried. "I've been reading the old records," James said quietly. "The ones they don't like to talk about. Every time the Harvester appeared, it targeted the most advanced civilizations first. It's like it was programmed to eliminate threats before they could become too powerful." "Can we beat it?" Elena asked. James was silent for a moment. "I don't know, but I know what will happen if we don't try. Earth is next on the list. The Harvester is already moving toward populated systems. At its current speed, it will reach our solar system in less than 3 weeks." Elena looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, her family lived on Earth. Her sister and her 2 children, her elderly parents, billions of people who had no idea what was coming. Earth had survived so much. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, wars that nearly ended civilization. Humanity had clawed its way to the stars through determination and sacrifice. "We need to prepare," Elena said. "Contact Earth Command. Tell them to send the Indomitable and whatever other ships they can spare." "The other Alliance members don't think much of our ships," James said. They think we're too new, too inexperienced. Then we'll show them what humans can do, Elena replied. We've been fighting for survival since we first stood upright. This is just another fight. Over the next 3 days, ships began arriving at the Alliance staging point near the fortress world of Cragthor. They came from worlds where the rain was acid, where the ground constantly shifted, where predators hunted anything that moved. Massive warships with crews that had evolved to survive conditions that would kill most beings in minutes. When the Earth ships arrived, Elena heard the whispers. The ESS Indomitable, ESS Defiance, and ESS Tenacity were smaller than most Alliance vessels. They looked old with thick armor plating and simple designs. Some of the alien officers laughed. How could these primitive ships make a difference? Elena stood on the bridge of the Indomitable as it docked with the Alliance station. Her crew moved with practiced efficiency. Most of them were veterans of Earth's last major conflict, the resource wars that had nearly destroyed civilization before humanity finally learned to work together. They had seen death, faced impossible odds, and survived. Commander Talana, Tavera's daughter and one of the few aliens who treated humans with respect, approached Elena at the docking bay. Many here doubt you, Talana said, her crystalline features reflecting the station lights. They see your ships and think Earth cannot contribute much to this fight. What do you think? Elena asked. Talana's expression was thoughtful. I have studied Earth. Your world tried to kill your species every day for millions of years. Earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, diseases, predators. And yet you survived. You thrived. You reached the stars. I think anyone who underestimates humans is a fool. That evening, the first tactical briefing brought all ship commanders together. The plan was straightforward. The Alliance would meet the Harvester with overwhelming force, using their heaviest weapons in coordinated strikes. They would target the ship's power core and weapons systems simultaneously. Elena listened, but said nothing. She had learned that humans thought differently about warfare than most species. The Alliance believed in honor, in direct confrontation, in proving strength through open battle. Humans believed in winning, whatever it took. As the briefing ended, alarm suddenly screamed through the station. A junior officer's voice crackled over the speakers. Harvester scouts detected, multiple drone ships approaching the outer perimeter. The room erupted in controlled chaos. Commanders rushed to their ships. Elena ran to the Indomitable with her crew close behind. This was it, the first real test. Through the view screen, she watched the drone ships approach. They were smaller versions of the Harvester, each one still larger than a destroyer. They moved with unnatural grace, weaving through space like living things. All ships, battle formation, Krethazar's voice commanded. Show them the strength of the Deathworld Alliance. The Alliance fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons and quantum torpedoes filled space with brilliant light. Several drones exploded, but more kept coming. They returned fire with beams of pure energy that cut through shields like paper. Elena watched 2 Alliance cruisers take heavy damage. She saw escape pods launching, crews abandoning ship. Her hands gripped the command chair. Weapons, she ordered. Target the lead drone. Railguns full spread. Her weapons officer looked uncertain. Captain, our projectile weapons are considered primitive by Alliance standards. Should we use the plasma? Railguns, Elena repeated firmly. Fire. The Indomitable shuddered as magnetic accelerators launched tungsten rods at tremendous velocity. Simple kinetic weapons, nothing fancy, just mass and speed. The rod struck the drone before it could adjust its shields. The impact tore through its hull, and the drone spun out of control before exploding. The bridge was silent. Then her communications officer spoke quietly. Captain, we're receiving multiple messages from Alliance ships. They want to know what weapon we just used. Elena allowed herself a small smile. Tell them we're just getting started. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it finally ended, 15 drone ships had been destroyed, but the Alliance had paid a heavy price. 4 cruisers were severely damaged and 1 destroyer was nothing but floating debris. The crew of the Indomitable worked in silence, running diagnostics and repairing minor damage. They had lost no one, though it had been close. Elena stood in the briefing room again, this time surrounded by exhausted commanders. High Commander Krethazar's armor was scorched in places and he moved with a slight limp. His flagship had taken a direct hit that had nearly breached the hull. The drones were only scouts, Krethazar said, his voice heavy with concern. The Harvester itself is far more dangerous. If we struggled against these smaller ships, how will we face the main vessel? The question hung in the air. Elena saw doubt on faces that had never shown fear before. These were warriors from the toughest worlds in the galaxy, and they were worried. The human ships performed well, Talana observed. She had fought alongside the Indomitable, her own ship covering their flank during a critical moment. Their weapons proved effective. Primitive kinetic weapons, scoffed Commander Voresh, a massive creature with thick hide and tusks. They work against drones, perhaps, but against the Harvester, we need advanced technology, not simple metal rods. Elena met his gaze calmly. Sometimes simple is better. Those drones had shields designed to stop energy weapons. They weren't ready for solid projectiles moving at orbital velocity. Luck, Voresh muttered. Before Elena could respond, an urgent message came through. A Keltharian research vessel had found something in the debris field of a destroyed world. They had recovered data that might explain the Harvester's origins and purpose. Dr. James Chen worked with Alliance scientists for 2 days, translating and analyzing the ancient records. When he finally called Elena to the research lab, his face was pale. "It's a weapon," James said without preamble. The Harvester was built by a species that existed millions of years ago. They were afraid of what might happen if one civilization became too powerful and dominated the galaxy. So they built this ship as a safeguard. A safeguard that kills civilizations? Elena asked. It targets species that advance too quickly, James explained, pulling up data streams. It measures technology level against biological resilience. Garden world species develop technology rapidly because their environments are safe, but they're soft, weak by Deathworld standards. The Harvester usually leaves them alone because they're not seen as threats. And Deathworld species? We survive everything our planets throw at us, but we're usually slower to develop advanced technology because we're too busy just staying alive. James paused. Except for Earth. We combine Deathworld resilience with rapid technological advancement. According to this data, we're the highest threat level the Harvester has encountered in over 1 million years. Elena felt cold. So it's coming for Earth specifically? It's coming for Earth first, James confirmed. Then it will eliminate the rest of the Alliance. We're all threats now because we work together. The news spread quickly through the fleet. Some Alliance members panicked, arguing that they should abandon Earth and scatter. If Earth was the primary target, maybe the Harvester would ignore the rest of them. Krethazar silenced such talk immediately. He stood before the entire council, his voice like thunder. 3 days ago, the human captain saved my ship when we were disabled. She led her vessel into enemy fire to rescue my crew. The Varanthi do not forget honor debts. We will stand with Earth, Talana spoke next. My people have studied human history. Their world tried to destroy them every day. Earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, droughts, diseases, predators, extreme weather. And still they survived. Still they built civilizations. If Earth can withstand its own planet, it deserves our strength. One by one, the other Alliance members pledged their support. Not all of them liked humans, but they understood honor. They understood what it meant to face extinction. The vote was called. The Alliance would make their stand at Earth. Training began immediately. Elena introduced tactics that made the alien commanders uncomfortable. Guerrilla warfare, hit-and-run attacks, strategic sacrifice, deception. You want us to retreat in the middle of battle? Voresh asked incredulously during one planning session. That is cowardice. That is survival, Elena replied. We're not trying to prove we're brave. We're trying to win. Sometimes that means falling back, regrouping, and attacking from a different angle. Humans have no honor, Voresh growled. Humans have survival. Elena shot back. We learned millions of years ago that pride gets you killed. Adapting keeps you alive. Despite resistance, some commanders started listening. Krethazar himself began to see the value in human thinking. After one simulation where human tactics resulted in 40% fewer casualties, he pulled Elena aside. Your people think differently, he said. You do not fight to prove strength. You fight to survive. On Earth we have a saying, Elena told him. It doesn't matter if you win pretty or win ugly. All that matters is that you win. While tactics were debated, Human engineers worked with Alliance technicians to retrofit ships. They added railguns to vessels that had only energy weapons. They installed nuclear-pumped lasers, a technology most species had abandoned centuries ago as too unstable. These weapons are dangerous, a Keltharian engineer complained. One malfunction and they could destroy the ship carrying them. The human engineer, a woman named Sarah Kim, shrugged. That's why we have safeties. But if you need raw power, sometimes you have to accept some risk. On Earth, we learn to weaponize everything. Nuclear reactions, kinetic energy, even gravity if we can manage it. The Alliance engineers were horrified and impressed in equal measure. What kind of species weaponized nuclear reactions for standard warfare? During a rare moment of downtime, Elena found herself in the observation deck with Talana. The Keltharian officer had become something close to a friend, one of the few aliens who treated humans as equals. May I ask you something? Talana's voice chimed softly. When you look at the Harvester, what do you feel? Elena considered the question. Fear, she admitted, but also determination. My sister has 2 children. They're 8 and 10 years old. They live in Mexico City, near where our family has lived for generations. If the Harvester reaches Earth, they die. Everyone I love dies, so I can't let that happen. Many Alliance members have families too, Talana said. But you humans seem to fight differently when family is involved. Like you become more dangerous. Maybe, Elena said. On Earth we have another saying. Nothing is more dangerous than a parent protecting their child. The Harvester is threatening our children. It's threatening everyone's children. That makes it our enemy. And humans are very good at fighting enemies. 2 days before the Harvester was expected to reach the outer solar system, James made another discovery. The ship wasn't just following programming. It had a form of intelligence, constantly adapting and learning. It had studied the Alliance fleet and would be ready for their tactics. There's only one way to stop it, James said during the final briefing. We have to get inside. The ship has a central power matrix that controls everything. If we can overload it, the Harvester will tear itself apart. How do we get inside? Krethzar asked. We breach the hull and send in a boarding team. James pulled up schematics. But the internal environment is lethal. Shifting gravity, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and automated defenses. The survival rate for the team would be less than 1%. The room fell silent. A suicide mission, then. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves to save everyone else. Elena stood up. I'll lead the boarding team. I need 50 volunteers. Before anyone could respond, every human in the room raised their hand. Her entire crew, over 300 people, volunteered instantly. Even James, who was a scientist and not a soldier, stepped forward. The alien commanders stared in shock. Krethzar's voice was quiet when he spoke. You understand this means death? We understand, Elena said calmly. But humans have been facing death since we first walked upright on Earth. Our planet tried to kill us every single day. We survived ice ages, supervolcanoes, pandemics, wars. We're still here. This is just another fight. Talana stood as well. The Keltharians will send 10 volunteers. If humans can face death with such courage, we can do no less. One by one, other species offered volunteers. Not many, but some. The bravest of the brave, willing to die alongside humans. As the meeting ended and people filed out, Krethzar approached Elena. The massive warrior looked at her with what might have been respect. I misjudged your species, he said. I thought Earth's classification as a Class 12 Deathworld was just a number. I did not understand what it meant. Your world forged you into something unique. You do not just survive. You refuse to die? Elena smiled grimly. That's the thing about humans, Commander. We're too stubborn to give up. Earth taught us that. Now we're going to teach the Harvester. The Harvester appeared at the edge of the solar system exactly when predicted. It emerged from faster-than-light travel like a wound in reality itself. A massive ship that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Sensors across the Alliance fleet screamed warnings as the vessel began its slow, inevitable approach toward Earth. Elena stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the tactical display. Behind the Harvester's main vessel, 3 escort ships had appeared. Smaller copies of the main ship, but each still larger than any Alliance cruiser. The situation had just become much worse. All ships, this is High Commander Krethzar. The voice echoed across the fleet channel. We hold the line here. Between this enemy and Earth, there is only us. Make every shot count. Honor to the brave. The Alliance fleet numbered 31 ships now, down from the original 47. They formed a defensive wall between the Harvester and the inner solar system. Behind them, Earth's own defenses prepared for the worst. The Harvester opened fire first. Beams of dark energy lanced across space, striking shields with tremendous force. 3 Alliance ships took critical damage in the opening seconds. The escorts split off, flanking the main formation. The battle had begun. Elena's tactical officer called out targets rapidly. Escort ship approaching port side. Range 3,000 kilometers. Main Harvester charging weapons again. All batteries fire at will, Elena commanded. Focus on the escort. Railguns first, then missiles. The Indomitable shuddered as weapons fired. Tungsten rods accelerated to tremendous speeds, followed by nuclear-tipped missiles. The escort's shields flickered but held. It returned fire, and Elena felt the ship rock under impact. Shields at 60%, reported her engineering officer. Hull integrity holding. Around them, the battle became chaos. Alliance ships fought with courage and skill, but the Harvester and its escorts were devastating. Another cruiser exploded in a ball of flame and debris. A destroyer lost power and began drifting helplessly. "Captain," her communications officer said urgently, "Commander Talana is in trouble. Her ship's main drive is damaged. She's dead in space and that escort is targeting her." Elena didn't hesitate. "Helm, intercept course. Full speed. Weapons, give me everything we have." The Indomitable surged forward, putting itself between Talana's crippled ship and the attacking escort. Railguns fired continuously, joined by laser batteries and missile salvos. The escort turned its attention to this new threat, hammering the Indomitable's shields. Shields at 30%, engineering called out. "We can't take much more of this." "Hold position," Elena ordered. "Keep firing." Just when it seemed the shields would fail, 6 other Alliance ships joined the fight. Together, their combined firepower finally overwhelmed the escort's defenses. The enemy ship broke apart, its pieces tumbling through space. "Good kill," Krethzar's voice came through. "All ships fall back to secondary positions. We need to regroup." The fleet retreated toward Mars orbit, buying time. They had destroyed 1 escort, but 2 remained, along with the Harvester itself. And the cost had been terrible. 8 more ships had been lost or disabled. Elena met with the command staff in a virtual conference. Faces appeared on screens, some human, most alien. Everyone looked exhausted and worried. "We cannot win this battle through force alone," Krethzar admitted, and Elena knew how much that admission cost him. "The enemy is too powerful. We need another option." James Chen spoke up from the research vessel. "I have been analyzing the Harvester's movements and attack patterns. It's learning from us. Every tactic we use, it adapts to counter. But I noticed something. When our ships used unconventional tactics it had never seen before, there was a delay in its response." "Human tactics," Talana observed. "Yes," James confirmed. "The Harvester has data on millions of battles over millions of years. But it has never fought humans before. Our way of fighting is unique. We don't follow the rules it expects." Elena leaned forward. "So we use that. We do things it doesn't expect. We make it react instead of act." "What do you propose?" asked Foresh. The large warrior no longer spoke with contempt. He had seen humans fight and bleed alongside his own people. "We separate the escorts from the main ship," Elena said, thinking quickly. "We make the Harvester think we're retreating in panic, draw the escorts after us. Then we hit it with everything while it's alone." "Deception," Krethzar said slowly. "Pretending to flee in fear. It goes against every warrior instinct." "But it works," Elena replied. "On Earth, we learned that pride gets you killed. Survival means doing whatever works, even if it looks cowardly, even if it goes against our instincts." After a long moment, Krethzar nodded. "We will try the human way. Give us the plan." The plan was risky and required precise timing. 6 ships, including the Indomitable, would make what appeared to be a panicked retreat toward Jupiter. The escorts would likely pursue, sensing weakness. Once the escorts were far enough from the main Harvester, the rest of the fleet would hit the main ship with every weapon they had. Meanwhile, the boarding team would launch in small stealth shuttles, approaching the Harvester while it was distracted by the main attack. They would breach the hull and fight their way to the power matrix. As Elena prepared for the mission, she found James in the armory, awkwardly trying on combat armor. "You don't have to do this," she told him. "You're a scientist, not a soldier." James looked at her with determination. "That power matrix is unlike anything we've ever seen. It's part machine, part organic, part something else entirely. You need someone who can understand it. Reprogram it if possible. That's me. Reprogram it, Elena asked. I thought we were going to overload it. That's the backup plan, James said. But if I can access its core systems, maybe I can change its programming. Make it stop attacking us. It's a long shot, but it's worth trying. Elena studied his face. If you can't reprogram it, you'll need to overload it. With you still inside. You understand that? I understand, James said quietly. My kids are grown. They have their own families now. If I can save them, save their children, then it's worth it. She put a hand on his shoulder. Then let's make sure your sacrifice counts. The decoy fleet began its retreat 3 hours later. Elena watched the tactical display as the Indomitable and 5 other ships broke formation and accelerated away from the battle. To any observer, it looked like fear, like units fleeing from a superior enemy. The Harvester's escorts took the bait. Both enemy ships turned to pursue, their weapons firing at the retreating Alliance vessels. The chase was on. They are following, Elena's tactical officer reported. Range increasing from main Harvester, now at 15,000 kilometers. 20,000. When the escorts were far enough away, the rest of the Alliance fleet struck. Every ship fired simultaneously, concentrating all their weapons on the Harvester's main hull. Energy weapons and kinetic projectiles filled space with light and fury. For the first time, the Harvester's shields flickered and failed in places. Damage reports started coming in from sensor arrays. They were hurting it, but the Harvester was not helpless. It rotated in space, bringing new weapon arrays to bear. Dark energy beams swept through the Alliance formation. 2 cruisers were cut in half. A destroyer simply vanished, disintegrated by the force of the attack. Meanwhile, Elena and the decoy fleet had to deal with the escorts. Both enemy ships were closing fast, and there was no more room to run. All ships turn and engage, Elena commanded. Show them what Deathworld warriors can do. The 6 Alliance ships reversed course and charged directly at the 2 escorts. Weapons fired from point-blank range. The space between the fleets became a storm of energy and metal. Ships on both sides took heavy damage. The Indomitable's shields finally failed completely. Energy beams raked across the hull, tearing through armor. Warning alarms shrieked. Elena felt the deck shudder beneath her feet. Hull breach on decks 4 and 5, engineering reported. Emergency containment fields holding, barely. Keep us in the fight, Elena ordered through gritted teeth. We just need to buy a few more minutes. Those minutes felt like hours. But finally, combined fire from all 6 ships managed to destroy 1 escort. The second escort, heavily damaged, began to retreat. Let it go, Elena said. All ships returned to the main battle. The boarding teams need our support. As the Indomitable limped back toward the main fight, Elena saw the tactical display and felt her heart sink. The Alliance fleet that had attacked the Harvester was devastated. Only 9 ships remained operational, and most of those were badly damaged. But the Harvester itself was also wounded. Its shields were down in several sections. Its hull showed scars and breaches. For the first time in millions of years, something had hurt it. And now, while the massive ship was focused on destroying the last Alliance vessels, small shuttles approached from its blind side. Inside those shuttles were 53 warriors from 5 different species, knowing they would probably die but ready to try anyway. Elena watched the shuttles on her screen and whispered a prayer to any god that might be listening. Get them inside, please, give us this chance. The boarding shuttles attached to the Harvester's hull like parasites on a massive beast. Elena felt the magnetic locks engage with a solid thunk. Around her, the boarding team checked their weapons and equipment one last time. 50 humans, 2 Varanthi and 1 Keltharian. 53 lives against a ship that had destroyed thousands of civilizations. Breaching charges ready, reported Sergeant Martinez, a veteran of Earth's resource wars. His hands were steady despite knowing what lay ahead. On my mark, Elena said. 3, 2, 1, breach. The charges exploded, tearing a hole in the Harvester's hull. Immediately, air rushed out of the ship's interior, carrying with it a smell like burning metal and rotting meat. The boarding team rushed through the opening, weapons raised. The interior of the Harvester was like nothing Elena had ever seen. The corridors were organic, pulsing with dark veins that carried some kind of fluid. The walls seemed alive, breathing. The gravity shifted randomly, making each step uncertain. One moment you felt normal weight, the next you were pressed to the floor by crushing force, then suddenly floating as if weightless. Stay together, Elena commanded. "James, which way to the power matrix?" James consulted the device in his hands. A scanner adapted from captured drone technology. Straight ahead, then down 3 levels. About 2 kilometers. 2 kilometers, Talana said, her crystalline features reflecting the strange light from the walls. Through hostile territory. With defenses we cannot predict. Then we'd better start moving, Elena replied. They made it 50 meters before the ship struck back. The walls suddenly sprouted weapons. Mechanical tendrils tipped with energy projectors. Beams of heat and light filled the corridor. 3 humans fell in the first seconds, their armor melted through. The team returned fire, destroying the wall weapons. But more appeared. Growing from the organic mechanical surface like tumors. The harvester was aware of them now, and it was fighting back. "Forward," Elena shouted. "Don't stop. We stop, we die." They pushed ahead, fighting every meter. The shifting gravity threw off their aim and balance. The toxic atmosphere leaked through damaged seals, making breathing difficult even with filters. The temperature swung from freezing to boiling in seconds. Humans fell. Martinez took a direct hit protecting a wounded soldier and died instantly. A Varanthi warrior was crushed when gravity suddenly increased to 10 times normal. But the team kept moving, driven by desperate determination. They reached a large chamber where the floor was covered in some kind of acid. It ate through their boots, forcing them to jump from platform to platform. One human missed a jump and fell, his screams cut short as the acid consumed him. "How much farther?" Elena gasped, her lungs burning from the toxic air. "1 more level," James replied. Blood ran from his nose and his hands shook. "But Elena, I'm picking up massive energy readings ahead. The ship knows we're coming. It's preparing something." They found the entrance to the final level, but it was guarded by what could only be described as antibodies. Mechanical organic constructs the size of tanks with multiple limbs and weapons. 6 of them blocked the passage. "Grenades," Elena ordered. "Everything we have." The team threw every explosive they carried. The corridor became fire and thunder. When the smoke cleared, the antibodies were destroyed, but the passage was partially collapsed. "We'll have to squeeze through," Talana said, examining the opening, one at a time. As they worked their way through, automated defenses picked them off. Energy beams from hidden emplacements, mechanical tendrils that grabbed and crushed. The team that emerged on the other side numbered only 28. Half their strength lost in minutes, but they were close. Elena could feel it. The power matrix was near. Outside the harvester, the remaining Alliance fleet fought desperately. The Indomitable, barely holding together, continued to fire every weapon it had. Krethzar's flagship was a burning wreck, but the commander refused to abandon ship, directing fire from auxiliary control. "All ships," Krethzar's voice came through, rough with pain. "The boarding team has reached the lower levels. We must keep the harvester focused on us. Whatever it costs, we buy them time." The Alliance ships pressed their attack, knowing they were signing their own death warrants. 3 more vessels were destroyed in as many minutes. The survivors continued to fight. Inside the ship, Elena's team entered the power matrix chamber. It was enormous, a cathedral-sized space filled with impossible technology. At the center, a sphere of pure energy pulsed with light that hurt to look at. This was the harvester's heart, its brain, its soul, and it was protected by one final defense. A massive construct that seemed to be the ship's avatar, a being of metal and energy and living tissue. It stood between the team and the power matrix, and its voice echoed in their minds rather than their ears. "You should not be here," it said. "You cannot be here. Deathworld species lack the technology to reach this place." "We don't rely on technology alone," Elena replied, raising her weapon. "We rely on determination." The avatar attacked. Energy beams swept through the team. 5 more humans fell. The Varanthi warrior charged the construct directly and was vaporized. But while it was distracted, James ran for the power matrix itself. "Cover him," Elena shouted. The remaining team members fired everything they had at the avatar. Their weapons barely scratched it, but they kept firing anyway. They threw grenades that did little damage. They charged with combat knives against a being that could destroy tanks. They died buying seconds. James reached the power matrix and pressed his hands against it. The energy burned his skin, but he didn't pull away. His scanner interfaced with the ancient technology, and information flooded into his mind. He saw the ship's history, its purpose, its programming, and he saw how to change it. The avatar turned toward James, sensing the greater threat. It raised an arm, energy gathering for a killing blow. Elena threw herself between James and the construct, knowing she couldn't stop it but trying anyway. The blast never came. Talana, her crystalline body already cracked and leaking, crashed into the avatar with the last of her strength. The impact disrupted its aim. The energy beam went wild, missing both Elena and James. For Earth, Talana chimed, her voice fading. For the Alliance. For all our children. The avatar destroyed her with casual ease. But those seconds were enough. James completed his work. I've got it, he gasped. I can reprogram it. Change its mission from destroy to protect. But I need 2 minutes, maybe 3. You've got it, Elena said. Only 8 team members remained alive, including her and James. Everyone form a perimeter. We hold here. The 8 survivors spread out around James, weapons ready. The avatar came for them, methodical and unstoppable. One by one they fell, fighting to the end, refusing to give up, dying so that billions could live. Elena was the last one standing. Her armor was torn, her weapon empty. The avatar stood before her, preparing the final strike. She thought of her sister's children, probably watching the battle on screens, not knowing their aunt was dying in space. Is 2 minutes up yet? She asked James, her voice calm despite everything. 30 more seconds, James replied, his hand still on the power matrix. Elena, I'm sorry. I thought I could do this faster. Don't apologize, she said. You're saving everyone. That's what matters. The avatar raised its arm. Elena closed her eyes, and then James screamed, Done! Upload complete! The avatar froze. The power matrix pulsed with new light. Throughout the harvester, systems began to shut down. Weapons powered off. Shields collapsed. The ship went dark. Outside, the Alliance fleet stopped firing, sensing something had changed. The massive vessel that had killed so many began to drift, powerless. Inside, Elena fell to her knees, gasping for air. She looked around at the bodies of her team, her friends, her brothers and sisters in arms. Command. She spoke into her communicator. Mission accomplished. The harvester is disabled, requesting immediate extraction. I have 1 survivor besides myself. Dr. Chen is alive. There was a moment of silence. Then Krethazar's voice filled with emotion the Varanthi rarely showed. Acknowledged, Captain. Extraction teams are on the way. You did it. You saved us all. Elena looked at James, who was unconscious but breathing. She had led 53 people into this nightmare. 2 were coming out. The price was terrible, but as she thought of her sister's children, of the billions of lives saved, she knew it was worth it. Hold on, James, she whispered. We're going home. The extraction team found Elena sitting beside James in the power matrix chamber, surrounded by the bodies of the fallen. She had used the last of her strength to pull them together, refusing to leave them scattered. When the rescue soldiers arrived, she was unconscious, her hand still holding James's. They woke up 3 days later in a medical facility on Earth. Elena opened her eyes to see white walls and the concerned face of her sister, Maria. When Maria saw her awake, she burst into tears. You're alive, Maria sobbed. They said you were dead. Everyone said the boarding team was gone. But you're alive. Elena tried to speak, but found her throat too dry. Maria held a cup of water to her lips, and after a few sips, Elena managed to whisper, The others? James is alive, Maria said gently. He's in the next room. The 2 of you were the only survivors from the boarding team. I'm so sorry, Elena. The grief hit her then, sharp and deep. 51 people dead. Good people, brave people who had volunteered knowing they wouldn't come back. Talana, who had become a friend. Martinez, who had served with her for 10 years. All of them gone. They saved everyone, Elena said, tears running down her face. They knew they would die, and they did it anyway. I know, Maria said, holding her sister's hand. The whole world knows. You're all heroes. Over the next week, Elena learned what had happened after the harvester shut down. The remaining Alliance fleet had limped back to Earth orbit. Of the 31 ships that had made the final stand, only 7 survived in any condition to fly. The casualties numbered in the hundreds of thousands across all species, but Earth was saved. The solar system was saved, and more importantly, the harvester's threat was ended. James's reprogramming had worked perfectly. The ship's core directive had changed from eliminate threats to protect organic life. Without its original mission, the harvester had simply shut down, becoming a dead hulk in space. Alliance engineers were studying it now, learning from technology millions of years more advanced than their own. The memorial service was held on Earth, in a vast field outside Mexico City. Representatives from every Alliance species attended. The bodies of the fallen had been recovered and were buried with full honors. 51 markers stood in neat rows, each one bearing a name and the simple inscription, "They stood between death and life, and chose to give their own." Elena stood at the memorial as speaker after speaker praised the sacrifice. High Commander Krethzar, his injuries still healing, spoke with deep respect about human courage. Other Alliance commanders told stories of the humans they had fought beside, the warriors who never gave up. When it was Elena's turn to speak, she walked to the podium slowly. Her body was still healing and each step hurt, but she stood straight and spoke clearly. "I wish I could tell you that their sacrifice was easy," she said, her voice carrying across the field. "I wish I could say they died without fear, without pain. But that would be a lie. They were terrified. They suffered. They watched their friends die around them. But they kept going. Because that's what humans do. That's what Deathworld species do. We survive, we endure. We protect those we love." She paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. Her sister and nieces were in the front row. James sat in a wheelchair beside them, his hands still bandaged from the burns. "Earth tried to kill us for millions of years," Elena continued. "Our world threw everything at us. Disasters, diseases, predators, extreme weather. It should have destroyed us. But we're still here. Because we learned that survival isn't about being the strongest or the smartest. It's about refusing to quit. It's about standing up one more time than you get knocked down." She looked at the markers, each one representing a life given freely. These 51 warriors understood that. They knew they were going to die, but they went anyway. Because survival isn't just about keeping yourself alive. It's about protecting others. It's about making sure the next generation has a chance. "Earth made us tough," Elena said, her voice strong. "But we made ourselves human. And being human means standing between death and the people we love, no matter the cost." The ceremony ended with the traditional honors from each species. The Voranthi struck their chest plates in salute. The Keltharians chimed their morning song. Humans played taps on a lone trumpet, the sound echoing across the field. Afterward, Elena met privately with the Alliance Council. They gathered in a secure room in the United Nations building, the same place where Earth had first made contact with the galactic community 2 years earlier. "Captain Vasquez," Krethzar began formally, "the Deathworld Alliance Council has made a decision. By unanimous vote, Earth is granted full membership in the Alliance. More than that, humanity is granted a permanent council seat, with authority equal to the founding species." Elena blinked in surprise. "I thought our probationary period was supposed to last 5 more years." "You earned full membership in 5 days of fighting," Krethzar replied. "You showed us what it means to be a Deathworld species. Not just surviving, but thriving. Not just fighting, but winning. Humans think differently than we do, and that difference saved us all." Tavira, who had become the Keltharian representative after Talana's death, spoke next. Her voice chimed with emotion. "My daughter gave her life beside humans. Before she died, she told me that humanity was the future of the Alliance. I did not understand then, I do now. You bring something we lack, a willingness to do whatever it takes, a refusal to accept defeat. We need that." Other council members spoke, echoing the same themes. Humanity's approach to warfare and survival would become required study for all Alliance military forces. Human tactics would be integrated into Alliance doctrine. Earth would help train the next generation of warriors. But there was one more piece of news. James had discovered something in the Harvester's databanks during his brief connection to the power matrix. Information he had downloaded before reprogramming the ship. "There are more Harvesters," James told the council, his voice heavy with the weight of knowledge. "Dozens of them scattered across the galaxy. They're all dormant now, following the same ancient programming. But if any civilization triggers their threat assessment again, they'll wake up." The room fell silent. Voresh finally spoke. "So we are not safe. The threat remains," yes, James confirmed. "But now we know about them, and we have time to prepare. Years, maybe decades, before any of them wake again. We can use that time to grow stronger, to build better defenses, to figure out how to disable them permanently." Elena stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "Then that's what we do. We prepare, we train. We make sure that if those ships ever wake up, we're ready. Because that's what survivors do. We don't wait for death to come. We prepare for it. Krethazar stood as well, and one by one the other council members rose. The human is correct, the Varanthi commander said. We have been given time. We will use it well. And if those ships wake, they will find not frightened prey but warriors ready to fight. 6 months later, Elena stood on the bridge of a new ship, the DWS Unity, flagship of the combined Alliance fleet. It was built using technology from 12 different species, incorporating the best of everyone's designs. Human railguns and nuclear-pumped lasers worked alongside Varanthi plasma cannons and Keltharian energy shields. The crew was mixed species too. Humans worked beside Varanthi, Keltharians and others, all training together, learning from each other. The old barriers were breaking down. When you fight and die beside someone, their species stops mattering. James had become the director of the Xenotechnology Research Institute, leading teams that studied harvester technology and developed new defenses. He still had nightmares about the power matrix chamber, but he channeled that fear into productive work. Krethazar had retired from active command but remained as a senior advisor, teaching young warriors the lessons learned from the harvester. He had developed a grudging fondness for human thinking, though he still complained that their tactics lacked honor, and Talana's death had not been in vain. The Keltharian people had erected a monument to her on their homeworld, celebrating her courage and her friendship with humanity. It bore her final words, "For all our children." Elena looked out at the stars from the Unity's bridge, thinking about the future. More harvesters waited out there somewhere, dormant but not destroyed. Other threats existed in the galaxy, dangers unknown and unimaginable. But the Alliance was ready now. They had learned from Earth's example. They understood that survival required more than strength or honor. It required adaptability, determination, and the willingness to do whatever was necessary. Her communications officer interrupted her thoughts. "Admiral, we're receiving a signal from the outer patrol. Unknown contact at the edge of our space." Elena felt her pulse quicken. "What kind of contact?" "Large vessel matching no known signatures. It's just sitting there, not responding to hails." Elena smiled grimly. 6 months ago, such news would have caused panic. Now, it was just another challenge. "Sound General Quarters."